potentate, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, Revelation 17:14. They shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for He is Lord of Lords and King of Kings. And Revelation 19:16. Oh, I love it. And He hath on His vesture and on His thigh a name written, 7 words, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. So we're seeing that Nebuchadnezzar represents, now he is this head of gold. Nebuchadnezzar represents, and this image thus represents a King of Kings. Because even though it's 4 different kingdoms, it is all one body. And so there has been an attempt by the devil throughout history. Let's try to bring it this kingdom, let's do it with this kingdom, and so on. Different kingdoms, but the same conspiracy, the same desire to rule planet Earth and to ascend to the throne of God. So here we have an image, an idol, Nebuchadnezzar, and his rule of what city? Babylon. Babel. That great city, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. He's the king of that, like Nimrod was. So here we have a replacement for Jesus, the ruler, the king of Babylon, the false image, and it starts out with Nebuchadnezzar, who is a king of kings. But it's so funny, because this whole image, the head of gold and everything, comes crashing down when the stone cut without hands goes for the feet. I'll show you why in a little bit. But then we have Jesus, the real King of Kings and Lord of Lords, who beats all these other guys. I love it. Absolutely beautiful. Now look in verse 39. And after thee shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee, and another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron. For as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces, and, notice the word here, bruise. Now, notice the words in the context. You know, the Bible tells us to walk circumspectly. Circum is like a circle, and spectacles, that's what I wear here. So that means looking around. So I like to not just take words and or like one verse and take it completely out of the context to get an understanding of it. I look at a verse and then I look around it. You're going to find definition, meaning, interpretation. You're going to find it there, and it's always going to match the rest of what's around in the Bible, line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little. So when we look at the word bruise, notice that as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. I like to look up words, English words. All these Greek and Hebrew scholars, they want to sound so smart. Like, now what it really says in the Hebrew is bachikam, or something like that. I don't know what they say. You know what I found out? Most of these guys, in trying to pretend they know Hebrew and Greek, need to go back and learn English. Go look up the etymology, the source of the word bruise, where it came from. It literally means like to hit something and break it. Shall it break in pieces and bruise? That's what it says. Notice in Genesis 3:15, and I will put enmity between thee and the woman, between thy seed, the serpent's seed, and her seed. It, the seed of the woman, Christ, shall bruise thy head. In other words, break his head in pieces. That's what God said he did to Leviathan, to Rahab, that crooked serpent. He broke his head in pieces, bruised his head. Think about Nebuchadnezzar. Think about Goliath. What happened to him? Bruised his head, broke his head. Think of the beast in Revelation 13. What happened? So it shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. What happened to Christ? They bruised his heel on the cross. But in doing so, it bruised the head. See, because the cross, even though they pierced Jesus in the feet, the cross pierced the skull, which is a picture of the Antichrist, the dead God, pierced the skull in the head. Just like Jael, Heber's wife, took a nail, fastened it in a sure place into the skull of Sisera. Isn't that beautiful? That is so cool. So anyway, Daniel chapter 2. Now notice this. We're gonna start seeing some things. And let me pull out old Fat Albert here. Fat Albert Pike. Okay. I've mentioned this before, but if this is the first time you've ever seen me or this ministry, let me show you this. And he's got here on the front of Morals and Dogma, a double-headed eagle. One wing here, one head looking this way, one head looking that way. There's a picture of Aleister Crowley, and he's got this all-seeing eye, triangle, funny-looking hat on his head. It looks stupid. He's got his hands like this on his cheeks, okay? And you're going, what in the world is he doing? This is the right and this is the left. And see how simple that is, but they're opposites. They're not, I don't have two right hands. I don't have all thumbs either. One on the right and one on the left. One facing this way, one facing that way. That's what the eagle does. There's a big meaning behind this, but I want you to see this in Daniel chapter 2, verse 41. Look at this. Whereas thou sawest the feet and the toes, part of potter's clay, part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. Notice clay and iron. Clay is malleable and you can do things with it and stretch it and make little cookies and make bread and you can make Play-Doh men and all that stuff. But iron, it's just iron. However you get iron from the iron store, that's how iron stays. It stays that way. So they're opposite of each other. One is hard, one is soft. The kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. Iron and miry clay. That means it's malleable clay. It's not hard. It's not been baked. It's pulled out of the mire. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so shall the kingdom be partly strong, partly broken. You see the opposites? Whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with miry clay. So he's establishing here in the rhythms and the cadences and the patterns of this passage here in Daniel chapter 2. He's showing you iron and clay. Iron strong, clay not strong. Iron hard, clay soft. Iron strong, clay broken. Then he says, they, which are going to be the opposite of the seed of men, they shall mingle themselves with their opposites. The seed of men. So this they, we're getting an idea now from the circumspectness of the passage, looking around it, we're getting an idea that this kingdom is not a kingdom of men, because men are not the opposite of men. They're the same. White is not the opposite of white. Black is. The Masonic floor, you ever notice that the squares are black and white and black and white, and they all make one floor? Opposites. Crowley doing this. Okay? The double-headed eagle. It's opposites. One eagle body. So here you have a kingdom that has, it's bringing together a fusion. You know what the word confusion means? It means with fusion. It means putting things together that don't add up. So you write out 2 + 3 equals 4, and you're going, I don't know how you got that. You're adding things that are not the same. So you have this kingdom, the fourth one, the iron, and you have the seed of men. So what is the opposite of men? That's what we're going to look at, and we're going to give you line upon line, precept upon precept from the Scripture. So, I've heard, I grew up in church, and I've listened to prophecy teachers and read prophecy books all my life. And I've seen how they talk about this is the revived Roman Empire. So when the European Union rises up, they're going, yeah, there we go. That's the kingdom of the beast. That's fourth kingdom right there, the European Empire. It never really made sense to me. Okay, I'm not saying everybody's an idiot until Mike Hoggard showed up. They're not. A lot of these were great men who believed the Bible. But remember, we're living in a time now where knowledge is increased. It could not have even been fathomed, even 40 years ago, DNA. Because we've known about DNA for, 50, 60 years. Francis and Crick kind of drew the idea of the double helix and so on. But most of what we know about DNA is about 15 years old. Even more than that, about 5 years old. So we're living in a day right now where the knowledge is increasing. When I see seed of men, I know that means DNA. So there's something about this fourth kingdom that mingles themselves with the seed of men. Look and notice that the kingdom is divided. What does that spell out? I like this part. Matthew 12:23. And all the people were amazed, and they said, "Is not this the son of David?" But when the Pharisees heard it, they said, "This fellow doth not cast out devils, but by Beelzebub, the prince of the devils." And Jesus, see the word prince? We're going to talk about that. And Jesus knew their thoughts and said unto them, "Every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation." It's like chaff and stubble. "And every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. And if Satan cast out Satan, he is divided against himself. How shall then his kingdom stand?" Don't you? And I couldn't for years, because you see like the Bilderbergs and the Council of Foreign Relations and the Masons and the Vatican, and you have the Muslims, and you have the Chinese, the Triads and the Trilateral Commission, and we're going, which one's in charge? I don't know. All these conspiracies, and I don't know which one is the real one. And I've had people say, Mike, you're way off on this thing when you think like it's the Masons. Oh no, it's the Vatican. It's this. You know what's the funny thing? And check this out. In the upper echelons of the Vatican, they're Freemasons. And yet the Vatican says, we hate the Freemasons. And historically, they have. So think about it. You have the Vatican, which is pure evil, Freemasons, Freemasonry, pure evil, and they don't get along. Never have. What's up with that? You see, we kind of have this idea that, they ought to play, on the same team. You're going to be on the same team, you got to play together. Well, that's how we're told in Bible Christianity. We're not told to go kill one another for Jesus. We're told to be one as Christ and His Father are one. And that was the prayer of Christ when He prayed. But all these, the phrase, there's no honor among thieves? All these are thieves. So while Leonard Sweet says, the only way to know God is through the inner self and all this stuff, it's actually contradictory to Mormonism, which is contradictory to the New Age movement, which is contradictory to and they're all a separate path. They're all divided against itself. So you know what that tells me? Of course they don't all get along. That's how come their kingdom won't stand. It's because it's divided against itself. Something I want you to consider, that, and we'll look into this a little bit later on, that it's the toes of the feet that are partially strong and partially weak, and those are the ones that are divided. And we really don't think about this a whole lot, of how much pressure and how much of our standing ability is based upon even that little bitty ugly toe with that 1/8 of a millimeter toenail on the end of it that gets snagged on your socks all the time. Even that ugly little pinky toe, about one of the strongest parts of your body. Because while you're standing, the gyroscope in your inner ear that God built in there for you is telling you what balance is. And without you even thinking about it, the gyroscope is signaling to the brain, we're moving a little bit to the left, the gravity is not right. So the brain sends a signal all the way down to the little toe, push down. Push down. Big toe, now push down. Now all the toes wiggle and stand up straight, and we just don't think about that. My dad had diabetes for a lot of his adult life. I have it now, so I'm following in his footsteps. But he was several shots, and he was a brittle diabetic, and he got infections in his feet.